Alright, well, welcome to my first official vlog. I'm doing this for a variety of reasons, some of which include to practice on my public speaking, to work on being clearer in what I want to say, more succinct, stumble and stutter and say less. So that's just one way that I'm going to practice that. The second one is I think I've been learning some pretty valuable lessons as of late, probably for even longer than just as of late. But I want to share those, or at least keep track of those for myself, so I don't make those same mistakes again, and then also share those with others, so that we can learn together. And I'd love to hear yours as well. So with that, I'm just going to jump into it. I'm going to try to keep them fairly short because nobody wants to listen to a long vlog, myself included. But today's one, starting now, is the vlog. Today's vlog is about a lesson I learned today with regard to the media. I'm an administrative fellow at Hancock Regional Hospital and have been working on a patient story. We had a patient come into our ED, crash. We kind of brought him back, and he had an amazing experience from there on, and his wife wrote a really great letter to our CEO, and so we thought it'd be a great opportunity for us to kind of dwell on that for a little bit and do a short documentary about that, just to really share their story, and thought it'd be great for our hospital and our community. So we've been working on that, and the last piece of that was to bring the patient and his family, for them to come back to the hospital and be kind of reunited with their care team. So we did that last Saturday and invited the local newspaper to come check it out and write a nice little community piece on it, take some pictures, and they did that. And so today that article was in the paper. And I guess I'll just get to my first point, and this all relates back to a marketing class that I took from my MHA. And one of the key focuses was never, when you're being interviewed, don't use negative phrases. No matter how you use them, they can always be taken out of context and used in ways in which you are contradictory to what you're actually meaning. So we'll look at the article. So on the front page of the paper, just a quick brief glimpse. It starts up here. You can see the title is "Thankful to Be Alive." Alright, so it's definitely got your attention. And you don't know exactly what for, but it's definitely got your attention. And then if you go down to the very first quote, down here at the bottom, you can barely see it on here, but I'll read it to you. It says, "Bad things happen in hospitals sometimes." And he goes on to have us, and that's one thing we can do there's one thing that we can do no matter what happens, be kind. So it ends well. But if you're going to your newspaper stand in the morning and you're drawn in by that headline, you just give a quick, brief glance at the article, and you see that quote at the bottom, "Bad things happen in hospitals sometimes." If that's all you read, you think we killed this patient, or almost killed this patient, and he's just miraculously made it through a hospital. So that instantly popped out to me as something, just to focus on not saying bad or negative phrases, regardless of what you're trying to talk about. The second portion of that is with regard to the SOCO. I think I've got the acronym right, but it stands for the Single Overriding Communication Objective. And that's what you're trying to communicate in that piece. And the letter that the patient's wife wrote to our CEO, and the whole point we were kind of doing this story was that, yes, he received great clinical care while he was at the hospital. But what made this a special experience was the non-clinical aspect of it. And that was kind of just the humanistic factors that were at play with our staff and how they treated him. And that's kind of what was memorable for them. Yes, great care, it's more of an expectation rather than a satisfier nowadays. So how do you stand apart from others? And that's through the patient experience and focusing on making it special and treating them like you would want to be treated. And that's why we're doing this whole thing. And so that was our SOCO in all of this. And that wanted, that's what our desirable SoCo was in this. And while only spoke about positive things about the hospital, it was primarily with regard to the story and with regard to the clinical care. That SoCo of kindness and compassionate and personable health care was just a small component of this article. So, it was a very well written article. It shined favorable light on the hospital and the care providers, but overall, it just slightly missed the SoCo that we were really wanting to communicate. Why is that? And that's because, myself, as the coordinator for this whole event and this whole project, assumed that the reporter would gain the background that she needed and gather that SoCo, from learning about the day as it carried out from those individuals and being there with us. Making that assumption was what led to the error. What do I do in future instances where I really need this SoCo to be communicated? I talk with the reporter, not for quotes in the paper, but just, maybe a recap of the day, how to go, what'd you kind of get, well, and then she brings up what she's going to write about, and I say, well, that was a key part of it, but another key part was this kindness factor, and that was really kind of what sprung all of this into motion, rather than the clinical care. Yes, that was great, but it was the compassion, the kindness. So then, from there, she then has the SoCo directly spelled out in front of her. The second component of this was, nobody would notice this except for clinical people and the people involved in the story, but some of her facts were slightly off. Not that it was really changed the outcome of the story, but for those that were doing it and the ones that are knowledgeable on the topic, it was a little, I don't know, a little embarrassing, I guess. But that's far less of a deal than the whole SoCo thing, because the community, it by and large doesn't really isn't going to be too aware or too concerned about those specific aspects. But the fact that the SoCo was missed was kind of a big deal for me. So that was definitely a lesson learned, but something I'll take forward and something hopefully you can take forward with you and learn ahead of time, prevent it from happening. All right, vlog 1. Down she goes.